direct from Canada. Awesome. BC Squatchers YouTube channel. Richard Spann. I received a very nice letter from Canada along with all the required permitting. Right here, all the CITES preparation, the extensive documentation, notarized. But Michael, why do you need notarization from Canada? It's not a well-known fact that pretty much at one point or other, every family smokehouse at least had a piece of a Sasquatch. At the turn of the century, the place was infested. All right, so about 60 years ago, my dad was working up in the Haynesville woods, hauling logs out during the wintertime with my Uncle Elisha. Now, this place that they logged at was pretty far north up there, and it was getting 40 to 50 below zero at night. So in the morning, before they could get the truck started, they used to have to get a little fire going under the oil pan to heat the oil up enough so that they could turn the motor over. And the road that they were hauling the logs out was more like a giant luge run. Bad enough that they would, and it was narrow too, so that they'd have to stop at the top of the hills, shut their motor off and listen. They had some kind of code where people would beep horns, but they'd have to listen to see if another truck was coming in, so they wouldn't meet head on. And if they did, the empty truck would have to go off into the ditch. Now, this particular morning, they were the first truck out, so they weren't expecting to run into anybody. They weren't stopping, right? And there was this very narrow, treacherous bridge over this river my father told me about. The approach to it was kind of sketchy too. You'd have a steep hill coming down in. There'd be a slight curve, I guess. You'd parallel the river for a while, and then there was this like banked, just like a luge run, but you'd banked corner that would set you up and shoot you straight across this bridge, which had no railings. Now, I guess where it paralleled the road, it was only 15, 20 feet down to the frozen riverbank. So they were coming out of there early in the morning. The sun hadn't even come up yet, because up here in the wintertime, we only get 6 hours of daylight. They come around that first bend and straightened out, went parallel to the river, and right in the middle of the road there was a person, or what they thought was a person. Being unable to stop, they impacted square upon this guy, which they later discovered wasn't a guy, it was a girl, and it wasn't a human, it was a Sasquatch person, Pomoola. Wild man. The loggers in Maine have a long-standing belief that people can just go into the forest and de-evolve into ape men. I mean, it's well documented in the newspapers. Bangor Daily News, the Washington Waterville Sentinel covered the 10-foot tall ape man that beat these guys against a tree trunk. Now, upon impact, this creature was sent into the river, or more specifically onto the riverbank, and my father lost control of the logging truck and also ended up sideways, flipped over, with the logs spewed out all over the river. They flipped their truck. Now, my uncle always carried under the seat, it's in terrible shape now, but this was a long time ago. It's like a 25 caliber revolver. They would use this in case they ran into a moose and crippled it, or hit a bear or something. He'd go over and pop, 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 pop the creature out of its misery and get some camp pot meat. So of course they're dazed. They scramble out of the truck, and this creature is laying in the snow, apparently dead. My father goes over to examine it, and the thing lunged at him. And fearing for their lives, they dispatched the great beast. Pop, 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 pop. The creature presented itself as being a 5.5 foot tall female, robustly covered in fur and hair. My father and uncle seized the opportunity to take a chainsaw, similar to the one I have here, but much older. They sawed off the creature's head. Now, in the 50s, not having any reliable chest freezers, they pickled the thing in a salted brine. All right, Michael, fine. Where's the head? Show us this head. I heard that dog waterer had head. He claims he's a dog waterer, but he doesn't do any videos where he waters any dog. I could show you the head. It's been pickled in salted brine for 60 years. Apparently it was recently put into a freezer. It's in kind of rough shape. I know what you're thinking, but what about the legality, Michael, of having such a creature in their possession? Not to worry, I have permits. I'm not going to show you the head right now, but what I will show you is they also hacked off one of its legs. Oh, it's freaking heavy. Frozen leg. The following spring, this is why this thing is so rusted. The following spring, the truck got stuck in the springtime and sunk into the mud. This was on the floorboards, and it was like a couple months, It was like July when things dried up so they could dig it out. It ruined it, rusted it up. But this is the revolver that killed Sasquatch. Well, that and the truck. Now, I know how things work. I do. So before making this video, I sent some DNA samples to Iceland Dr. Roja, professor at the Institute of Anthropological Studies. He sent me this extensive report back confirming that it's unknown primate DNA. It doesn't exist in the gen bank. I know what you're thinking. The head. Where's the head, Michael? Look, it's not ready. You know, it's frozen. I've got it frozen. It's in this big block. It's not ready for presentation. But I promise you, I have a Sasquatch frozen head. I do. They're not that rare. Right now, I'm working on acquiring a second one. It seems as if there was quite a few of these things hit by logging trucks through the years. A lot of them in pickled brines. A lot of pickled Bigfoots in Maine. You can quote me on that. A lot of pickled Bigfoots in Maine. I mean, just think about it. We have tons of 99.99% woods up here. Tons of logging trucks. The place is infested with Bigfoots. It just makes sense that they would get hit. And because they didn't want the FBI, the authorities, they didn't, you know, people up here are very, they keep to themselves. They just took care of the problem. And look what the spotted owl did. They don't want anybody stopping the logging. You run over a Sasquatch up here, man, you deal with it like a man. You take care of the problem. As soon as I get the head ready for presentation, and I get confirmation of the legalities. I mean, I've sent my lawyer a letter, and I mean, my lawyer sent me this letter back. I'm pretty sure that I'm good to go, but we're just gonna hold off for just a little bit. That's right, the gun that killed Sasquatch.